Welcome to the Clear Minds podcast, episode 3. I'm here with my very special friend Kurtis.
What's going on, brother?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Today we got some interesting topics to talk about. We're going to be discussing MAT, dating and sobriety. We're going to have a lot of good stuff, so make sure you stay tuned. All right, Kurtis, can you share a bit about yourself and what life was like before sobriety?
So, I, for a long time, I wouldn't even say a functioning addict. I just really wasn't an addict. I'd say, okay, for years, I'm talking about years, I could use very sporadically. So when I was in college, I started using hard drugs when I was 19. Um, but it was one of those things, I went through some phases where I would do coke every day for 3 or 4 months or something like that. But I wasn't I could let's say if I was doing meth or fent or Roxy's or something like that, I could do it once and then not do it again for 6 months. So I did it really sporadically until I was 25. Um, and so when I was 25 or 26 actually, I was teaching abroad, and when I was teaching abroad, COVID happened, so I had to move back to the States, and that's where things got really, really dark for me during COVID or whatever. And so that's when I started. At that point I had done everything, all the drugs, but really at that point is when I started drinking copiously, popping pills like crazy, and then I kind of was in a little bit of a relationship that first year, 2020, and then when that relationship ended, that's when I started doing meth every single day, and then shortly after I was doing opiates every single day. And then so before sobriety, I'm kind of going through one of those periods where I'm starting to romanticize my drug use in my mind. So I really have to compartmentalize or differentiate real from fantasy. Because the reality of it was very dark and I was miserable. I was living a really lonesome, cold lifestyle. I was hanging with people I shouldn't have been hanging with. I wasn't working. I wasn't being productive at all in any capacity. Um, but in my mind, I was I was having fun. I was carefree. I didn't have a job. Everything was so great. But the reality of it was, you're living to get high, and then especially when you're doing uppers and downers at the same time, it's just you never get a break because you're. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's just the next fix. And this is regardless if you're doing just let's say you're just doing meth, it's still the same thing. But when you're combining both of those things, it really becomes you can't function, you can't sleep unless you're doing fentanyl. You can't wake up unless you're doing dope. You cannot function in any capacity without doing something. You know what I mean? And which makes it interesting because now I'm at any situation, I can think of a drug that would make it better. But that's also my addict mind, just trying to.
And is that now you're thinking those, or were you thinking that? So you went from sporadically using to living abroad, and then COVID happened, and then we all went through the pandemic, and then to a more um, you know full blown thing, and then now you're at the point that you're romanticizing some of the thoughts or ideas that, what it may have been like, but trying to um, understand, the truth of it and where it was.
Yeah, and I think all addicts do that because when you first get clean, you're so hopeful and you're oh my god, the future's gonna be so much better, everything's gonna be so great, and I just gotta be clean, and you go through that because and I remember a friend of mine told me that the further you get away from your drug use, the further you are from the pain, so you start to forget what really you were going through. And I think so any addict, alcoholic addict, anybody will eventually go through this, and that just happens to be right now for me. And this is I catch myself regularly, like thinking damn, it'd be fun to go back. But I also it's a quick fix, and I can really I usually catch myself pretty quickly, and I'm oh come on, no. So.
I hear you definitely. When did you? So you already kind of mentioned when you first started using.
Mhm.
So was there a turning point when you realized your relationship with substances was a problem?
I don't know because it's really interesting because when I was living abroad, that was actually the first time I had ever used a needle was when I was living abroad. But I used the needle and I didn't use it again until I was back in the United States. So it was like at that point I should have been like, holy shit, I'm living in a different country and I'm shooting up meth. Like that's crazy. But I didn't because it was like one of those things where I just put it down and I was fine. So then when I came back, I think I was surrounded when I first came back, I was surrounded by people who were drinking. Everyone was drinking. It was COVID, so it was like everyone's drinking, everyone's at home, and was surrounded by myself with. I had a Klonopin prescription. My who I was staying with at the time had a Xanax prescription. I was taking most of his Xanax and all of my Klonopin, and so in the moment, it didn't really seem anything. It didn't seem like I was doing anything bad. I was like just making it through. And then when that we separated and went our own ways, I started doing meth here and there, right? Again, like it was started like only on weekends, and while I was working, I was teaching, so I was go back to school during the week. And then after a few weeks or after like a few months, I started to notice myself like I'd use on the weekend and then on Monday. I would use to get through the school day because I hadn't slept all weekend, so I would use on Monday, and then I would like chill out, and then eventually it just became all day, every day. And it wasn't for about, I remember from the time I started doing meth regularly, it was about 9 or 10 months before I went to rehab for the first time. And what really it was, I didn't even want to go. I didn't think I had a problem. I was doing it to kind of please my roommates. Were like, dude, you look sick. Like you're not doing well. And I went to my parents' house and I was like, because my friend Tanisha at the time, she was like, you gotta go to rehab. You gotta go to rehab. You gotta go to rehab. And I was like, what the fuck, whatever. So I went and like talked to my parents. I was like, maybe I should go to rehab. And like, we've been waiting for you to say that. And I was like, it's still in my mind. I was like, what am I doing? And I kind of like romanticized the rehab aspect too because there was a lot of people I was doing drugs with that had been to rehab. So I was like, oh, I'll just go to rehab. Everyone goes to rehab. And even like the first time I went to rehab, I knew I didn't mean it wasn't sincere. I didn't want to get sober. I knew I wasn't gonna stay sober.
Still had some reservations.
100%. And I was clean the first time for 30 days. I was in rehab. The night I left rehab, I started doing coke. The next day, I was doing meth again. So, I mean, I don't really think. I think maybe the first time I took it really seriously was the second time I went to rehab. The second time I went to rehab, that's when I was like starting to shoot up regularly. I was starting to really get dark into opiates, and like that was the first time I had like with like detox off opiates like hardcore. So I think that was the first time I was like, yeah, I have a real problem here. And the second time I went to rehab, I did the whole thing. I did detox, residential, PHP, IOP, and after that, I stayed clean for quite a while, over about a year, and but now that I'm like thinking about it, I think it was like going into the second time of rehab because that was the first time I really got dope sick. Like that was where I was like, yeah, no, this is an issue. Yeah, up until then, I didn't really like it was all just a game. It wasn't real.
So it kind of took like the physical feeling of it to say like, okay, this is maybe something worth exploring, another option,
Yeah.
and doing something.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll talk about the decision to get sober. So what motivated you to pursue sobriety?
I think at first, and so I've been at now rehab 5 times. The second and the third time that I went to rehab was pure desperation. Like I was getting dope sick, and so the third time I went to rehab. That's when I got on Suboxone on that. But I think the desire to get clean at that point was like I was desperate. Like I was getting sick. I don't like think I would. It was just really really bad, and that fueled my desire those 2 times. Now, the time that it clicked, the last time I was in rehab treatment, and the one that it stick, it was also desperation, but it was different. It wasn't that I was sick; it was that I was just hopeless, lost, insecure. I didn't have anyone around me that I would like. I didn't have anyone around me that I like trusted or valued. Like I pushed my family away. I didn't have any friends. I was losing my apartment. I didn't really have a job, and so it was like that mental despair, and that's the time it stuck. But I don't know. I think that's what it would. Every time it was some kind of despair. The first two times it was at like physical despair, and the last time it was mental. It was definitely a psychiatric or emotional
Kind of like the
thing.
gift of desperation.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel in the early days of sobriety, like this most recent, like, that you said you've been through the residential, the PHP, um, how would you just describe the early feelings?
The early feelings this last time, I was just really excited because so the first four times I've been to treatment, I was stayed in. I'm from Texas, so I was in Texas. I went two times in Austin and then two times in Dallas. And so coming out here, I was like, I'm in Florida now. It's a whole brand new start. I'm gonna live in a new place. I'm gonna meet all new people. It's a whole new lifestyle. Like I was so excited because I knew like this really was a second chance that I had. So I think really was just pure excitement. I could once you get through the phases. So this last time I wasn't coming off opiates. I was just coming off meth and benzos. So I did my like benzo taper or whatever. And so you're pretty doped up the first like 7 to 10 days. I really was just kind of like sleeping, chilling, relaxing. Like really wasn't too focused. But once my mind started clearing up, I really was just pretty excited. Really excited, looking forward to the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, in my time in the going through treatment as well, they did, taper as well. And, I just thought, okay, this is what sobriety is going to be like. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I just sleep, take this medicine, go to sleep, and wake up, and okay, I did another day.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. So I know what you mean there. So we're going to talk about support in recovery. Did you seek help from a program, therapist, support group? Um, and if you did, what was like the experience like
Do you mean like outside of treatment?
outside of treatment?
You know, the support groups that I had done, the biggest thing that I did was so I when I came to Florida, when I got out of treatment, I went to a sober living house, Oxford House. Wonderful organization, wonderful house. Met a lot of cool people, and I really think that was one of the keys to my success so far. Now, heaven forbid, I don't know. Like obviously, I'm just around a year sober, so we'll see. But so far, I think that's been a key is that I stayed in an Oxford House for several months. With the Oxford House, you have to have a sponsor. You have to go to meetings. You have to be kind of active in the recovery community, and I think that really was helpful. The one thing that I haven't had, but I actually just now got, like, I have an appointment on Monday with the therapist because I'm like, I need to go to therapy. I'm catching myself.
All right, Curtis, what would you say some of the hardest parts of getting and staying sober are?
The hardest part, in my opinion, is like doing it. Like, if you're gonna go to treatment or if you're gonna detox on your own or however, but making the decision like day zero, I think is the hardest part. Like, you're gonna do it, and you gotta just do it. I think once you try it, it kind of gets easier from there. Um, I think really what was unbearable for me getting sober is withdrawing from opiates, like getting dope sick. And I'm like the same is kind of similar for alcohol, going through withdrawals. You probably kind of understand versus someone who just does like stimulants. You don't really go through that. It's more of like a psychiatric thing or psychological thing. But I think the physical, like getting sick, I think that really was what prevents a lot of opiate users from getting clean. Is that getting dope sick and going through that withdrawal period. So I think really the key, or my advice to anyone who is in current active addiction downers, is to go get treatment, go to a detox center, go to rehab, go do something where they're going to medically assist you get off all that because that makes it so much easier. Other than that, I think just making the choice to do it is the hardest part. If you're See, I kind of have done it where I just try to do it by myself and not have any kind of support group or like go to treatment, get out of treatment, go back to where I was living. and not do like sober living or something. It really does make it a lot easier if you surround yourself with people who are like minded. Even if like for me, I'm pretty resistant. I don't really want to be involved. I don't really like I'm kind of more reserved. So like even but forcing or not forcing myself, but just like going to a sober living house, even if it's uncomfortable for at first, like after a while you get to know the guys and like it gets a lot better. And I think that really makes it a lot easier. Doing it on your own is also pretty hard. I don't think it really works. So
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely challenges of doing it by yourself than with other like-minded people who are going through the same somewhat similar situations.
yeah, 100%.
Um, how do you cope with cravings, stress, or triggers today?
So that is one thing. Um, so I'm on Matt. That really does help craving. Like as far as like physical cravings, yeah, I don't really get it more. It's more just like I do getting high sounds nice. That's like what I'm dealing with. But Matt helps a lot. Suboxone. I actually just got the Sublocade shot a couple weeks ago, so I haven't been on Suboxone in a couple weeks. But I had the shot, so I'm still on buprenorphine. It's just different, but um, I think what do they say? Play the tape through. That really like helps a lot because there's a lot of times where I'm like, for example, I've recently started Ubering. Last night I was Ubering from 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. At 1 a.m. It's like, dude, a little bit of dope would be dope right now. Like it would help. Just give me a way. Like get me through. Because I remember back when I was on doing meth on weekends, I would be doing meth and I could Uber all night, Friday night, all night, Saturday night. They force you to take a 6 hour break after 12 hours. Do that. Do Lyft while you're doing it. I can just go, 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 go. And so in my mind, I'm like, that was great. But I'm just thinking about when I was Ubering. I wasn't thinking about when I wasn't Ubering or when I was, at night thinking there's a cop behind me and it's just a regular person. So like playing the tape through and like, what would that actually look like? If I did that, that would not be good. And what all would I be giving up? Because I think I'm going to be giving a lot. If I were to relapse now on anything, I'd be giving up a lot more than just my sobriety. I'd be giving up my relationship that I've built. I'd be giving up pretty much everything. I mean, I've started over so many times that it's like, I think playing the tape through really is how man, like my key way to manage cravings at this time. Um, yeah.
And by playing the tape, you mean looking back and seeing how things were, and also realizing like the things that you've established now and have now, and taking risk of losing those.
Yeah, that and also like in the moment, like really what I mean is if think like really taking a moment to think if I were to do drugs right now, what would be the real repercussions of that? Like what would that cause? Because in the moment you're thinking about the next hour or the next 2 hours, but what would that look like tomorrow or in 2 weeks? Like where would I be at if I were to relapse right now? Like really think about what's going to happen and what what would be the result if I were to do it, because that's the thing. Like I can say here and think I keep saying this over and over and over, but it really is a real thing, and it's a real thing that I think a lot of us go through is romanticizing and euphoric recall. And I really right now that if I were to do that, like the real it's I wouldn't just be, oh, I'm gonna do it right now and it's gonna be a one-time thing. I will slip up and I'm gonna be high for the next 6 months. Probably. You know what I mean? So, like that is what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I guess while we're on this, I dealt with something in the last week that I haven't felt in since really becoming like sober, and that's like a craving that's like something. So I went to a doctor a couple months back, does Chinese medicine, and he, suggested said that my fight and flight is very hyperactive. So I need to like slow down, eat more fattier foods, and take some herbs. So since then, I've been on a journey to like find this right, change my diet and figure out which herbs would work.
Mm.
So as you know, going through, I came across this supplement, magnesium glycinate, and taking this, I started it last week, and the effects doesn't happen quickly. It takes a little bit of time to build up. So now, yesterday's been like a week since I have it, and I'm working, and some of the also benefits of it are improved sleep, better mood. Um, so I woke up yesterday and I'm feeling calm, like I had a great sleep. And wow, this is okay. This is not bad. This is kind of cool. Um, but then as the day goes on, I'm starting to get these cravings and urges, and I'm like, wow, I don't smoke, but I'm thinking like, wow, a vape would be really nice right now.
Yeah.
A vape would be really nice. Just some nicotine. I'm like, where are these coming from? I haven't, like felt that since like sobriety, and I'm like, like where is this? So, you know, I thought to myself, it's like, is it worth? At what cost are those benefits if it's going to make me go down the route of other things?
Right.
So after work yesterday, I took it and I threw those out.
Yeah.
But and we'll get more on that later. But I just want to discuss that because that's something that, um, um, it was like, yeah,
And I think it's interesting that you point that out though, because I had this when I was in I was either the first or second. I went to the first two times I was in treatment. I went to the same treatment center, so it might have been both of those times. But I had this one of the therapists there with the counselors. He said like when you relapse, it's when you're like feeling good. He said this is can be like when you have a little bit of money in your pocket, when everything's going okay, and it's like damn, I'm feeling good. I can have like a drink, or like I'm feeling like things are good. Like I could. So it remind you saying that kind of reminded me of that. For some people it can be really triggering you know what I mean, to be feeling too good, you have to like bring yourself back and like say, okay, like that, I'm feeling good, but I don't want to be drinking. I don't want to celebrate for that. You know what I mean? It's
mhm,
actually interesting that you said
absolutely.
that.
Yeah. Now we're going like on reflection and change. How's your life changed since getting sober? Maybe relationships, work.
Yeah, I think one thing that so when I'm under the influence, I don't go out, but I'm more social. Like I'll have people over all the time, people that I shouldn't be around, but I'll be around people all the time. I won't be going out for people, but I'm like noticing like now, like I do have to kind of like force myself to be social. I don't really like it. I could, if I'm not working, I would be more than happy just like laying in bed, playing on my phone, or just sleeping or watching a show or whatever. So like one of those things is like the social aspect, that's been a change for me. I'm pushing myself to get out there, but like for good things, like my relationships have improved. I am in a relationship right now that is something that I wouldn't have been able to do under the influence. I wouldn't have been able to handle that or manage that. Um, Work, I wasn't able to have a job when I was under the influence, so I'm having a job, making money. Um, I think just even having hope for the future, like making plans on like how like what moves can I make to better the future. Like like investing in stocks or like thinking of like businesses I can start or like things like that really have been a big change. That is, yeah.
So yeah, it seems like you're, definitely improved, since getting sober, and I think, which tends to do for most. What have you learned about yourself through this journey?
That's a really good question. I think what I've learned, I'm kind of stubborn, but really what I do, I don't, I'm uncomfortable in my own head. That is the one thing I really learned is that I have got, and I'm in the process of learning on like how to like actually just like myself again. Not even like loving myself, doing daily affirmation. I'm talking about like just sitting alone in your head. Like when you're by yourself and you're laying in bed at night and you're thinking to your own thoughts, like I cannot stand that. Like I'm like getting used to or getting warm or like warming up to the idea of like I don't know, like getting to know, like loving myself. I think that's one thing that I'm really trying, like learning about is like just learning who I am. I don't even know what that means. Really, I don't know what that means, but I know what it means. I don't, I don't really know how to explain it. Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm learning about myself.
Yeah, I definitely get
Yeah.
that. I understand that. Do
Mm.
you think you would you'd be the person you are today if you hadn't chosen recovery?
You know, yeah, I wouldn't be who I am today. But I think that's a, I don't know, because like looking back to like the person I was before I was like hardcore on drugs, I was, I really loved that person. I really think that was, I was a cool, you know, teenager and to my early 20s. I was a really cool person. I was a really cool guy. I'm nowhere near that anymore. I'm not nearly as spiritual. I'm not nearly as like kind. I'm not nearly as like generous. But like I really, I don't think I definitely wouldn't be who I am today. I'm learning a lot. I have a lot more empathy for like drug addicts. Um, but then at the same time, I don't, because it's like I said earlier, I have friends who are like on that just won't get sober. I'm just like, screw you. Like, either do it or don't. I'm doing it. You know, if I could do it, you could do it. Get your head out of your ass and just do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, just get clean. Like, what's the problem? So I don't know. I definitely wouldn't. I'm definitely a different person than the version of myself on drugs. So to answer your question, I definitely am. Is that like what was it? Do you think you'd be the person you are today if you hadn't chosen? Yeah, I wouldn't. Definitely wouldn't be. Yeah. So yeah.
Awesome, man. What would you tell someone who's struggling with addiction but doesn't know if they're ready to quit?
What I think is if either way, own it, own your choice. Either get sober and do it, or just own being a drug addict. Like the thing that I really, and I think why this is resonating so much with me right now is I have a friend who I like. He just fell off the map. I'm pretty sure he's back in rehab because I was checking the Dallas County Court, and I don't think he's in jail. Um, but he's always like, I want to get sober. I want to get sober. I want to get sober. Then get sober. It, there are so many resources out there. Like I get, if you really want it, there are resources available, and I get how hard it is, and I understand it's not easy. But if you're not gonna, if you don't want to do it, then just own that too. You know, that's okay. I mean, it's not really, but it is. I don't know. My heart goes out to people who are. I'm kind of bipolar on that. Like my heart goes out to some people, but like at the same time, like just get your shit together. I don't know. To the drug addict right now, there are so many resources out there that anyone like if you really want to do it, get there are resources, call, like there's hotlines, there's so many things that you can do. So even if it seems hopeless, or if you're like if you were saying that you want to get clean but you don't know how, well, there's like a hotline that I don't, you know what I'm talking about. There's like a
Hmm.
drug addict hotline that you can call and they will like hook you up with like different rehabs. And another thing that I think helps is like a little bit of advice is getting out of, like, go out of state, go somewhere new. Like that really was a big difference for me.
Like change people, places, and
People,
things.
places, and things. Yeah, 100%. That like that really is helpful because I can see, like, you know, if you're going to treatment and then you're getting out and you're going right back to the same neighborhood you were used to, your stomping grounds are, and you're not going to stay clean. You know. So yeah.
I get that. Um, so, what does sobriety mean to you today?
Sobriety really means that's the thing. I'm building a life that you love, and this is such a cliche because you know how they say you're either white knuckling it or you're actually being like sober and like building a life that you love being sober. I'm in the process of doing that. I haven't completely gotten to that point yet where I'm like, oh my god, I'm so in my love with my life that I could never imagine doing drugs. Like realistically, you know, sobriety is fragile, but I sobriety to me is building that life, and that's what I'm in the process of doing. Like really falling in love with your life, doing things you enjoy, creating hobbies, developing hobbies, having a good social network, don't isolate. You know, that's to me what sobriety is. And it really does, it gets better, I guess.
Yeah, so sobriety, so kind of like sobriety is just not about using or drinking. It's about doing different things. Being changing working on yourself,
Mm-hmm.
finding those defects and maybe trying to work on those of what caused to um, that behavior in the first place.
Right.
What did you know? Okay, now we're going to touch a little bit on, MAT, medication assisted therapy. And what did you know or think you knew about MAT before starting it?
So what I knew, um, I had in my early opiate like phases, I had gotten high on Suboxone. Like I had taken it to get high, and I did get high on it. That was before I had even built a tolerance. And I remember I had a friend, one of my dear friends. He's now has overdosed and passed up, which breaks my heart all the time. But he was the first person to give me Suboxone and expose me to that because I was like, I didn't know what it was, and I remember I would trade Klonopins, and he would give me a couple spots subs. And so I knew what it was, but I didn't like really know how it impact like how it. I didn't really know the process, and so the second time I went to treatment, um, I remember that I was dope sick. I was going through withdrawals. They did the Subutex, and they asked me if I wanted to be on Suboxone. I'm like, no way, I don't want to be on it. Like I don't want to do it. And it, and of course I went back and I relapsed shortly after that. Like I didn't stay off opiates for long. I actually like that, and now I going through. So I have two sober dates. I have my fentanyl sober date and I have my meth sober date. Fentanyl has been February 11th. So February 11th of this year, I had been on Suboxone for 1 year, and that really was a game changer for me because especially in early recovery, it curbs your cravings. It blocks you can't get high, like you can't go and do because it's got the Narcan, the naloxone in it, so you can't really get high off of it. It just really is really a lifesaver. And I know some people who are on it and they never get off of it, but like right now I'm in the process of trying to get off of it, um, because it is kind of like you have to take it every day or you'll get sick, but it really does help. I think in early recovery, especially if you're like a chronic relapser. I really think Matt um, can help. It can if it's not right for everybody, but I think if you really have no like if you're nothing else is working, I think it's worth a shot. For any opioid user.
See, I'm not familiar with Matt or Suboxone, but you mentioned that so before recovery you were taking them to get feel a high.
Yeah. So before I was a real opioid addict, because after that, like once I like really started doing fentanyl regularly, Suboxone never got me high. I didn't feel anything.
So it's kind of really low or
If you don't have a tolerance, like so if you don't, so there's two components to like Suboxone specifically. It's got buprenorphine, which is an opioid, and then it's got naloxone, which is like Narcan. It's like the opioid antagonist.
okay.
So if you don't have an opioid tolerance, the buprenorphine itself will get you feeling something. Um, I'm sorry, what was the question? I kind of lost track of that.
So what did you know or think you knew about Matt
Oh,
before
so
starting?
I just knew that it was something that I don't know, like, and from like in my mind, it was like something that real addicts were on. Like that's if you had a real problem, you were on that. Because the people I knew who were on it were like, holy shit. But um, I don't know. But for the viewers who don't know what MAT is it's a medically assisted treatment, and what it is it helps you get off and stay off opioids. Um, so.
Yeah. So you mentioned, the first time in treatment you refused it,
Mhm.
and then the next time in treatment, you decided to take it. So what were your initial thoughts or feeling about getting that support on your recovery?
Honestly, I just had remembered like what I knew about it. I kind of was excited. I thought it was like a freebie, and like honestly, if I'm gonna be honest about it, I wanted to get on it that second time because I was like, this is gonna be a freebie. I'm gonna be able to take it. It's gonna make me feel good some type of way. But it doesn't. What it does though is it curbs your cravings physically, and then after at first mentally too. So what I knew about it, or what I just didn't know. I don't
So and I'm just trying to understand it more.
know. Yeah.
So curbs the cravings, but earlier you were mentioning, when you do Uber at night, and, and it gets to like 1 in the morning, you have the thought of maybe this some type of hit of something would make me
That's the
take it to bed.
stimulants, like meth.
Okay.
So that's the thing is
Okay.
I was poly. I did uppers and downers.
Okay.
So it's like late night. I would like hit a little bit of dope, a little like meth, coke. Like that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, not the downer part of it.
Well, how did your body respond in the early days of treatment? So when you got on this Suboxone, was there any like changes or like?
So the lifesaver for me is there's another thing that has buprenorphine. It's called Subutex, and it doesn't have the naloxone. But that's what you get on. They use that.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Subutex, that's what they. So how do I explain this? Not like going and like spiraling. So if you're on opioids and you need to get off of it, and you're getting sick, they get you on Subutex, which is buprenorphine without the naloxone, and then after that, they put you on Suboxone. So the change that I noticed that in my body is that I'm getting so dope sick. You just get a little bit of buprenorphine, and it takes that dope sickness away. But as far as like getting like on the subs, I just noticed that my body wasn't craving it anymore.
So
Like,
really just curb the cravings, and it's something that you
uh,
didn't like. So physically, you weren't, or mentally as well, or
at first mentally too, physically and mentally it curbed cravings. It wasn't. I didn't start like thinking about like doing downers like in my mind. I didn't like start fantasizing over it until probably like 8 months on subs. Just recently, honestly.
now. So in what ways did Matt support your ability to function and rebuild your life, like where you're at now? You're
That's
saying it's a year.
yeah. So it gives you it just really helps promote you being able to like function in society because it gets you out of the lifestyle. So you're still like you're not you're still on an opioid. It's like I don't know, like it just really helps you be able to function in life in society. uh,
I'm sorry.
no, you're
It's
good,
not.
brother.
Were there any side effects or challenges you faced while on that? Were you,
No, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm not the best one to explain it. No,
so
the side effects of it, you can't stop it. That's the thing. You if you stop it, you get sick. Getting off of it's a bitch. Like, excuse my language, but getting off of it's just so hard. And that's the thing that I'm like starting to battle now. Is like I can't get off of it. And so what I got is I got the shot to try to get off the subs, but really what you're doing with it is you're replacing the opioid with the mat so that way you can function without like really getting high, but you're still feeding the opioid addiction, I guess. Really, I don't know.
now we'll get into something about dating and recovery. I know you're in a relationship now, but we'll
Yeah,
talk about before then. So how long have you been before? How long have you been sober before you started to date again?
I was sober. I think it was around 9 months. I didn't wait the full year. They say wait a year. I didn't wait the full year, but I was sober for a good amount of time. Yeah, that's how long I was sober.
That's awesome. Yeah, I heard that as well. Wait a year before finding a relationship, but I would say to myself that it was like just coming up, a little bit before a year, and um, yeah.
So I had this treat. When one of the times I was in treatment, I had a counselor who was because everyone says it's wait a year, wait a year, wait a year. But I had this one counselor, and she was like, "Why? Who cares? Like, really? Like, some people are lonely. Like, if having a person in your life like that is like helps you or gives you something to focus on, she was like, go for it. And so I like kind of like held that to me too. I'm like, honestly, yeah, you should wait a year. And there are moments in my life, even now, I'm like, shit, I should have waited a year because can get really insecure or get really paranoid or really uncomfortable because I'm like, things are too good. I don't want to get my heart broken. I know how people are. I know how shady people are. So sometimes I do wish I would have waited a year because now I'm like, I don't want to end my relationship to go get my mind clear. I don't want to end it with this person because I know like then that ship has sailed, that bridge is burnt, and but maybe I think it is worth waiting a year to start before getting a
Like I know what you mean. Like so, because you feel emotions a lot more.
relationship.
You're like make sure that this is right, the right relationship. And so I understand what you mean, and it's like getting into it, like, because I don't know about you, but for me, it was like when I got into the relationship, it's like I didn't want games. I didn't want like I wanted it to be like it, like all or nothing. Like I'm gonna put all of me into it,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're in the same thing, great. If not, you know, I just don't, mm, I don't know how to understand it. But I think that was a big part of like waiting because I didn't know if I was truly ready for that um, earlier on. Did you take intentional time to avoid dating in early recovery? Why or why not?
I think I did. So like for me, I was just like not out there in early recovery. I wasn't like on any dating apps. I wasn't really like putting myself out there in any capacity at all. So I think I was intentional about avoiding it, but it was really because I was focusing. I really did like this last time around. I really was like focused on myself, like going to my meetings, working a program, building relationships, especially with the guys at the Oxford House. Like that's really what I was focused on. So I think after time, it kind of organically kind of fell into place. But at first, yeah, I probably did intentionally avoid it.
Mhm. Yeah. So for me, I didn't like intentionally wait, but I kind of just like I wasn't out like searching or seeking. Like if it
Mm-hmm.
came, then great. Then I would potentially be open to it. But I wasn't going out there looking. I felt like when the time was right, it'll come.
Yeah, organically, and I think that's the best way because then also like there's like this is a super cliche, but they say like when you're not looking, that's when you find your person or whatever. I think
Mhm.
it really if you're focused on yourself and like taking care of you, then you're like building space for the right person to come along and like help be better. I think if you're like out there searching for it and like make forcing things, it could really cause codependent relationships. At least for me in the past, it has.
Mhm.
So.
Absolutely. How is dating sober different from dating while you were using?
So while I was using, I just didn't care. That's the thing. It's like you couldn't hurt me. Like you couldn't break my heart because I didn't care. Like I did not care. Go sleep with whoever you want to sleep with. Go do whatever you want to do. I'm doing me. We can hang out and we can vibe. And then I don't care. So like for like now though, I feel a lot more vulnerable. Like
Mhm.
my feelings really could. There's the potential for a real heartbreak right now. Versus like when I'm under the influence, and the relationships I had, like when I was dating on drugs, they weren't real. There was no substance to it. It was just people I hung out with, did drugs with, hooked up with, and then we both did our own things when we weren't together. Um, so now there really is the like being vulnerable. I think is a really big difference. Like I don't want to get my feelings hurt, and part of that I think can be problematic at times because I get paranoid or in my mind I'm like I need to build a wall because I don't want to get heartbroken right now. I don't
Mhm.
I really don't want it because I fear that if I were to be heartbroken right now, especially with the things that I'm going through that I've explained to you, I fear that then that would be all it took to not give a shit and relapse. And I just do think that's just a period that I'm going through right now. I don't know if that's going to be forever or whatever, but yeah.
Absolutely. Have you chosen to date only sober people, other sober people, or have you dated people who still um, drink or use?
I would never be able to date anybody who used and stay sober. If I were So my partner now is sober, and I definitely think that's. And when I've dated in recovery in the past, it was always with sober people. I couldn't date anyone in active addiction or even like someone who casually drank or did whatever. So
Yeah, I understand. I was on the fence with that too as well. It's like my initial thoughts, before I did get into the relationship I'm in now, is that I was like, I want somebody who never used, never drink, like
mm-hmm.
someone like, and just kind of forget about my whole past and kind of forget like all that, and you just try to springboard forward. But what I realized is that somebody coming from um, program two as well, being in sobriety, that there's so much more understanding and and being there for each other. Like you were mentioning the vulnerable, being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I think all when you're using it's like we're tough and we don't really care about other people's feelings and it's when we hurt because we can't be hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now luckily like the relationship I'm in now, we understand that and we understand that how um, delicate the relationship is,
Yeah,
so we
yeah,
try to um, um, be there for one another and like you said, you're vulnerable, like hurt, so kind of try to understand the other person's um, 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 maybe they're wherever they lack or wherever they feel really doubtful, be there to help build them up, and be there and be not honest but transparent.
yeah.
I think that's a big one. um, yeah. So what have you learned about yourself through dating while sober?
I've learned that I am pretty high maintenance. Um, I've learned a lot about my insecurities. Um, and I really have learned. I have started to really notice a lot more of my like toxic traits, which is a good thing because now I can work on them. That's what I've learned about myself. I'm really noticing a lot of all the negative that I do, and and sometimes I just can't help it, like where I'm just kind of a little brat or like needy or whatever, or want attention, or I'm a pain I'm a pain in the ass or whatever. But at least I can notice like when I'm doing that or like the patterns of that behavior, and I'm like trying to fix that and change that to be the best version of myself I can be.
And I think that's so important, and that's wonderful that you're able to do that. And I mean, all the bad things you say, but I don't think I think there's many good things too.
Yeah.
Um, but to be able to understand our defects and not only to understand them but want to work on them,
Yeah.
that is I think one thing that um, has been so beneficial in dating and sobriety, and
Yeah, I agree.
understanding what you don't want. um, how do you celebrate milestones in your recovery?
How do I celebrate most? I think there's like.
Well, Kurtis, thank you so much for being on. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. We learned a lot, and it's been awesome, man.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for having me, and thanks for providing a space to be able to talk about this stuff. And it was a good time, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you,
Yeah,
Kurtis.
my pleasure, brother.